December 2008. A man tells his own sons that his life's work, decades of trusted investment returns, is, in his own words, one big lie. His name is Bernie Madoff. And what he was confessing to wasn't a bad year of trading. It was the largest Ponzi scheme in history. To understand how something this massive stayed hidden for decades, you have to go back to where it started, long before anyone suspected a thing. 1960, a 22-year-old Madoff starts a small trading firm with money he'd saved working as a lifeguard. Nothing about it looked suspicious. It looked like the American dream. Over the following decades, his firm didn't just survive, it thrived. Madoff helped pioneer electronic stock trading, and eventually rose to chair the NASDAQ stock market itself. This wasn't some outsider running a scam from the shadows. This was one of Wall Street's most respected insiders, trusted by regulators, admired by peers. Alongside his legitimate trading business, Madoff launched an investment advisory arm. And it's this part of his empire that, by the 1990s, had quietly become something else entirely. Here's the mechanism. A Ponzi scheme doesn't generate real returns. It simply pays existing investors using money deposited by new investors. Madoff told clients he used something called a split-strike conversion strategy, a real, legitimate options trading technique. In reality, no meaningful trading was happening at all. Instead, his team fabricated account statements, showing steady, remarkably consistent returns, year after year, regardless of what the actual market was doing. And that consistency was the hook. While other funds swung wildly during downturns, Madoff's clients saw smooth, reliable growth, quarter after quarter, decade after decade. To keep the machine running, Madoff relied on feeder funds, intermediaries who funneled money from investors around the world directly into his firm, no questions asked. This is how a scheme built on trust in one man expanded across continents, eventually pulling in wealthy families across Europe, Latin America, and Asia. But here's the part that makes this story almost unbelievable: people did try to expose him. As early as 1992, concerns were raised with the Securities and Exchange Commission. By 2005, financial fraud investigator Harry Markopoulou submitted a report to the SEC with a blunt title: "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." The SEC investigated Madoff's business multiple times over the years. Every single time, they failed to catch what was really happening underneath. Madoff's reputation did the work his numbers couldn't survive on their own. Being a former NASDAQ chairman and industry insider made him nearly untouchable to scrutiny. For nearly 2 decades, the scheme held. As long as new money kept flowing in faster than old investors cashed out, the illusion could continue indefinitely. Then came 2008. The global financial crisis triggered a wave of panic, and investors everywhere began pulling their money out of everything, all at once. Madoff's clients were no exception. By December, more than $12 billion had already been withdrawn from his firm, with barely any new money coming in to replace it. On December 3, 2008, Madoff quietly told a senior associate the truth: "I'm out of money." On paper, his firm's accounts still showed billions in value. In reality, his investors had requested a combined $1.5 billion in withdrawals, and only $300 million actually existed in the bank. He scrambled, searching for any last investor willing to inject enough cash to cover the gap. No one came forward. On December 10, Madoff still hosted his firm's annual Christmas party, handing out early bonuses, as if everything were normal. That same night, his own sons, growing suspicious for some time, confronted him directly. He told them to go to the house and talk. There, Madoff finally admitted the truth to his family: the investment business was, in his words, basically, a giant Ponzi scheme. He said he had nothing left. His sons reported him to federal authorities that same night. The very next morning, December 11, 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested at his Manhattan penthouse. Estimates of the total fraud reached as high as $65 billion on paper, with direct investor losses eventually calculated at around $18 to $20 billion in actual invested funds. The victims spanned an extraordinary range: Hollywood figures, major charities, universities, pension funds, and ordinary retirees who lost their entire life savings overnight. On March 12, 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felony charges, including securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and perjury. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison, the maximum allowed by law, and ordered to pay restitution that, given his remaining assets, could never realistically be repaid. Bernie Madoff died in federal prison in April 2021, at the age of 82, having spent his final decade paying, in a small way, for a fraud 2 decades in the making. The real question this story leaves behind isn't just how one man got away with it for so long. It's how an entire system of regulators, investors, and Wall Street trust looked directly at the warning signs, and still failed to see it. If this finally explained how the biggest financial fraud in history stayed hidden for decades, subscribe. We uncover the real stories behind history's most staggering financial collapses, every week.